The Athenians could only watch helplessly as Macedonian expansion unfolded. In the Peace of Philocrates in 346 BC, the same year in which the Phocians were finally defeated, Macedonian hegemony over large parts of Greece was already recognized. By 340 BC, Thrace was completely in Macedonian hands and was placed under the control of a Macedonian strategist. In the same year, Philip II, King of Macedon, besieged Byzantium, which, however, held out and captured an Athenian grain fleet. This threatened Athens' vital supply of grain from the Bosporan Empire, which is why the Athenians declared war on Philip. In 339 BC, the Macedonian army advanced surprisingly quickly into central Greece and occupied strategically important positions, but the fighting did not bring any decision. Now Thebes also joined the alliance founded by Athens. The Athenian army had already entered Boeotia as a preventive measure and was able to unite with the Theban contingent within a few days. The allied army of both cities was also reinforced by small contingents from Chalcis, Megara, Achaia, and Corinth. In August 338 BC, Philip's troops marched along the main road from Phocis to Boeotia to attack the allied army that had blocked the road at Chaeronea. At the beginning of August 338 BC, Philip II led an army of around 30,000 Macedonians and Thessalians against the roughly equally strong allied Greek army from Thebes, Athens, and other city-states in the Battle of Chaeronea. The Macedonian phalanx was led by Philip himself, while his son Alexander made his first appearance and commanded the mounted troops on the left wing of the army. The alliance of the Greek police comprised a total of 30,000 Greeks, around 10,000, albeit inexperienced, Athenian hoplites on the left wing, the allies and mercenaries in the middle of the formation, and, as the main force, the Theban troops. These also included the famous Holy Band of 300 elite soldiers. These couples also consisted of an older and a younger partner. The Athenians and their allies acted in a rather disorganized manner at the start of the battle, while the Macedonian phalanx was in an orderly manner and only appeared to retreat. The Thebans initially held formation while the Athenians moved to the left, opening a gap in the anti-Macedonian force. Alexander and his mounted troops made a devastating push into this gap before the feared Macedonian phalanx advanced again. Although some parts of the Greek army retreated or fled, the Theban sacred band held its position, losing around 250 of its 300 men. The defeat was devastating, and the Athenian and Theban troops lost a total of about 2,000 men, while about 4,000 hoplites were taken prisoner. The Macedonians suffered relatively few deaths, and although this was Alexander's first major victory, he does not appear to have been recognized for it by Philip. The Battle of Chaeronea marked the end of the last serious resistance of the remaining Greeks against Macedonia, and, although not immediately recognized by contemporaries, heralded the end of the traditional polis world. As a result of the defeat, Thebes received Macedonian occupation and lost political autonomy. After his victory, Philip established a Macedonian garrison in the city castle of Thebes and then moved across the isthmus to the Peloponnese, where he secured the goodwill of the cities there by treaty and demonstrated his strength against Sparta. He then withdrew to the Isthmus, where in the summer of 337 BC, following his call, the representatives of almost all Greek city-states, with the exception of Sparta, arrived at the sanctuary of Poseidon on the Isthmus of Corinth to discuss the formation of a new Hellenic League to record. Philip founded the Corinthian League in 337 BC, to which all Greek city-states except Sparta belonged. He became its hegemon and authorized strategos, thereby de facto controlling the federal government. He proclaimed a general peace, a long-held hope of many Greeks who were tired of constant wars, and secured federal approval for a campaign against the Persian Empire. This campaign was justified as revenge for the destruction during Xerxes' campaign 140 years earlier, but it probably also served to direct the forces of the ever-restive city-states toward a common goal. At the same time, the campaign promised rich loot and an expansion of Macedonian influence. The federal government committed itself to providing 20,000 infantrymen and 1,200 cavalrymen to implement the federal treaty. The war against Persia was decided upon at the first session of the Bundestag, with the liberation of the Greek cities in Asia Minor and retaliation for the desecration of the temple in 480 BC being the declared goal. With his military dominance, Philip II ensured that decisions were made in favor of his interests. Examples of this are the judgment for the destruction of Thebes in 335 BC or the trials against the Persian friends from Chios. His weddings were part of Philip's alliance policy, in which alliances were sealed through the connection of the royal houses. In addition to various affairs with women, Philip also had sexual relationships with men, which was not unusual at the time. The relationship between Philip II and his son Alexander was often fraught with tension, as Alexander seemed to strive to surpass his father's achievements. Philip probably expected unconditional loyalty from his son, even though his position as his successor was not certain. The same applied to his mother Olympias, who had no special rank among Philip's many wives and whose influence came solely from being the mother of the supposed next Macedonian king. As early as 337 BC, Philip married another woman, Cleopatra, the niece of the Macedonian general Attalus, who already had great influence at the court of Pella. After an incident in which Philip himself is said to have sided with Attalus and even wanted to attack Alexander with a sword, but failed due to his drunken state, Alexander is said to have mocked his father. This led to Alexander going into exile with his mother in Epirus. 6 months later, Alexander returned to Pella, but tensions remained, especially since Philip did not shy away from violence if necessary. Despite the strained relationship, Alexander proved his worth in his father's military affairs. Already at the first session of the Bundestag in the summer of 337 BC, Philip was elected Supreme Federal Commander, Strategos Autocrator, and authorized to lead the fight against the Persians. In the same year, an advance party under his generals was sent to Asia Minor, which was able to liberate some Greek cities, but was thrown back by a Persian counteroffensive under Memnon of Rhodes. Before Philip could set off on the campaign against Persia, he was murdered by his bodyguard Pausanias during the wedding of his daughter Cleopatra to the Molossan prince Alexander of Epirus in the summer of 336 BC. Shortly afterwards the assassin was killed and Alexander was declared the new king of the Macedonians.